welcome back to Two Dope Black Doulas. I'm Brittany Jones, and this is,
Danielle Watson Murray. How's everyone doing?
and we are your two dope black doulas. Today we will have a very special guest with us to round off our Black History Month celebrations. And we want to highlight the work of a certified nurse midwife in the maternal health space, particularly Black certified midwives. We have with us today not just a certified nurse midwife. And today we have joining us the esteemed doula educator powerhouse nurse midwife Venus Standard. Venus, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. After you done embarrassed the heck out of me, what else? That one. But yes, I am a certified nurse midwife. So, and a childbirth educator and a certified doula and all those things. So basically, I care for women in the childbearing age. Some certified nurse midwives can care for women and the extent they can go into elder care as well. I choose not to because I think that's a specialty, and I would want somebody caring for my mom or my grandmother who specializes in that field. So I just tend not to do that portion of care that I can, and I specialize in OB care, obstetrical care, and GYN care for women in birthing people and in the childbearing age. So from 11, 12, 13, when they first get their period until, they can still have babies. That's where I focus. I'm also an assistant professor at UNC School of Medicine in Chapel Hill. I also do my clinical care with my patients at the Department of Family Medicine there in Chapel Hill.
Awesome. Yeah, you do it all.
Right.
I know about that. I do a try. That's what I do.
Very well rounded.
Right? And doing well.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're excited to have you on the show today to talk about the very important work that you do, not only as a certified nurse midwife, but the pivotal role that you have played here in North Carolina with educating doulas and creating a specific Black doula workforce for this area. So I'm very interested in hearing about your experience as a Black nurse midwife in North Carolina and how your work literally saves Black women's lives. I know personally, I can attest for that. I had a client and a baby that would have had a negative outcome had you not been in the picture and me being able to consult with you. So can you talk about what made you decide to become a midwife and your experiences as a Black midwife in the hospital system?
Sure. That is so multifaceted. Just experience it as being a person of color, being a Black woman in the world of OB is a challenge in itself, right? And there's not that many Black midwives in North Carolina anyway. So we are that unique group of midwives. And unfortunately, there's not many Black OBs. I think there's something like 4% or something throughout the country of just Black providers in general. So the unique thing that we have with our patients is the potential shared experience. So by default, we kind of get the trust cards. Just like I train the doulas, you get the trust card by default because people of color bring more than just their medical history to the table. Mm-hmm. They're bringing historical things. They're bringing current trauma, historical trauma, medical systems that have done them wrong, not listened to them. So, the overwhelming thing is they feel a lack of trust, and that's throughout, not just in the maternal space. That's kind of in the medical realm completely. Things that they say and do are not trusted. They trust us to understand what they're going through. They trust us to possibly have had the same lived experience. Not necessarily all the lived experiences they have, but some of them. Absolutely, like discrimination or disparities or not being listened to. Those things, they know that at some point in our lives that we've had that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we get that trust level because there's so much things that happen in the medical system, behind the medical walls and the education medical walls that you don't know. I mean, you ladies know that there's a medical book that I had in my education that taught us how to care for people based on their culture and their race. Mm-hmm. Right? That was a whole chapter in the book. It has since been removed from books moving forward. But what about all the people before that had that training?
Absolutely.
sometimes when you see or hear about a situation, it's because that's the way that person was trained, right? And if you learn it in school or your mom teaches it, your instructors, your teachers in school are supposed to be giving you the correct information. And
Mm-hmm.
when you get information that says, and this was the chapter, that Black people will exaggerate their pain level. So the answer to the question was really, you don't have to believe them if
Mm-hmm.
they scream pain, because they're probably exaggerating and not telling the truth. And that's really unfortunate. So we bring that extra level of trust to them, that they can confide in us, they can tell us info. As doulas, they may have told y'all things that they didn't tell the provider, because they feared that they wouldn't be treated the same. They feared that they would have retaliation. And I had a patient that told me that she thought that her care would change if she had complained about something that happened in the hospital. So she would complain after she left, because she
Mm-hmm.
thought her care would change. But the overall consensus is people of color are not listened to, they're not heard, which are two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can hear
Mm-hmm.
you, I can listen to what you're saying, but not hear you at all. They're
Right.
not respected in the same way, they're not supported, and their opinions are not valued. And we need to change that. In order for things to change, that has to be the first thing that changes, that we listen to our families. Because while, as a medical provider, I may be the expert in the room at the time in the room, I'm not the expert on her, because she's lived with her body her whole life, where I'm
Absolutely.
just meeting her. And there's so many other facets of her body or her life, generational. She done heard grandma and auntie tell her things that happened to them in hospitals. So she's bringing all of this extra baggage, if you will, to her situation that could have a negative outcome of her situation, because it's weighing heavy on her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Venus, we appreciate you sharing that. And I feel like the audience should know how we got to meet you, or even meet each other, which we have spoken about in previous episodes, was through the LEADoula program. And can you tell us a little bit about that project that you and your colleagues started, and how it really changed the game for so many of our clients, and just the whole doula outlook, especially with Black doulas? Change the game.
Sure. Sure. Well, yes, I met you ladies, for the audience. I met you ladies as a part of the program. It was a program that started 4 years ago. It was grant funded. And we got the first very small grant in February of 21 from the C. Felix Harvey Foundation. And the basis of that program was to train Black people to be doulas for Black clients, to support them. Because again, if 4% of medical staff is Black, then including the nurses, I don't know the nurse ratio, but it's just about that same ratio. So that means the majority of the care providers do not look like all of the clients that they serve, which is impossible to do. But if there were more, there'd be more of an opportunity to have a provider that looked like you. So I proposed that to the C. Felix Harvey Foundation, that I train some Black women to be doulas, because it takes a long time to go through college, to go through medical school, to go through residency, then to specialize. It takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time and a lot of money. It takes a lot
Mm-hmm.
of time to go through nursing school, then to go through midwifery school, it takes a long time to be a nurse, to go through nursing school, college, then go through nursing school. So all those things take so much time, education, and money. And to infiltrate the system as fast as I could, that's where the idea of having this type of program came along. It was to put together a program of concordant doulas that could infiltrate the system in the shortest amount of time. It has already been studied and documented that a doula being a part of the maternal care team gives better outcomes. That's not new. It's
Yes.
been documented with ACOG in our medical journals. It's been documented. Have a doula. ACOG even wrote that in 2017. To decrease the chances of having a C-section, have a doula. To decrease the risk of having other interventions, have a doula. Right. So that's been documented. But now if you add the concordant doula on there, you can add the concordant piece, the piece that the doula may be the only person in the room that looks like that client. Right. The only person. So they look to them for that level of support. For the audience that may or may not know, doulas are not medically trained. Now they could be, but as a doula, they're not. As a doula, they're there as a support person, as an advocate, not as a mouthpiece, but as an advocate to that birthing person, to give them the voice to be able to speak up and ask questions. The doula is there to educate them on things that they have the right to understand and know, right? So that was our proposal, and it was granted to train 20 doulas, and by the operation, the organization that does the certification for us, Dona International, they require 3 qualifying births to be able to apply for certification. So that's what I put in our proposal, that it would be 3 births per doula. At 20 births, that's 60 families, right? So that was the grant, and the grant was a year. So we did the training. It was an 8-week training. We did the training in May and June. So the first set of doulas, which was called cohort 1, hit the ground July of 21. So essentially we had from July of 21 to June of 22 to do our 60 families, to train our 20 doulas and to have our support our 60 families. So by in the heat of COVID, I wanted everything in person, right? I wanted everything in person because it's hard to do a touch service and you can't touch the person. So I wanted the doulas to be in person. So what I did was split the 20 in half. So half started in the May and the other half started in August. And that was so, even though we had a classroom that could hold 100 people, I wanted people to feel safe in our space. So everybody was spread out better. So by end of September, we had our 20 doulas trained, but the first set, the cohort 1, had already been on the unit July, August, and September. And now here comes the new group. So again, remember what I said, we had until June of the following year to get our 80. There happened to be a Press Ganey report. And for those that don't know what Press Ganey is an independent organization that surveys hospital patients to learn their experience, how'd you like the food? Was the hospital clean? How was the staff? Like all the pieces. I don't know how many questions are on that survey that a client gets. So the Press Ganey report comes out, I believe, twice a year. I could be wrong on that, but I believe it comes out twice a year. And I noticed it because now I was on the unit with the doulas. I noticed it being posted in July of 21, and it actually says the date on it, July of 21. Their satisfaction rate was, I believe it was 51.43. And I could be wrong by a little bit, but then by November, we had already had our 20 doulas on the floor, right? Wow. And remember, I said we had until the following June to do our 80 doulas. Well, by the beginning of December, we had already done 80 families, supported 80 births. So we had surpassed our goal by supporting the families in half of the time. But that gave rise to the service was needed and wanted, because we did more than we were supposed to in half the time that we were allowed. So that means that there was more families that needed and wanted this service, right? Now, not only did we accomplish that, but then here come the Press Ganey reports again. And as of, I think the date on it is November of 21, right? And it's probably the end of November. It says November of 21. Remember, I said in July, it was 51.54. Well, in November, it was 75.0.
Wow.
It had soared that much. Wow. So what was the deciding factor or the contributing factor to make their numbers rise so much? I don't know.
The math The math is
So
mathing,
my
as the
colleagues
kids
say we
say.
can't take credit for that, but I think
I
we're the
mean,
only new ingredient in the
In the
sauce.
sauce. Yeah, that makes
exactly.
sense.
So you have to consider that that is a part of the secret ingredient is the patient satisfaction was increased due to having a doula that looked like them. Now
Yes.
the unit has a volunteer doula program, right? And just by mere fact of it being majority a part of the nursing program,
Mm,
most of the doulas, not all, but most of the doulas are not black doulas. Most of them are white doulas. They do a very good job, right, at what they do. They're on the unit to be able to help in a time of need. Our doulas, one, look like the family, look like the client, right? In addition, didn't meet them on the unit. They met them weeks before. Being
Yes.
able to know them, ask questions, learn their family, learn their likes, their dislikes, what are their desires for the birth. You cannot do that. It is impossible to do that on the fly when somebody is in labor.
mm-hmm.
You just can't get that
Possible.
much information,
Right.
right?
Right.
Impossible to walk in and I'm
Right.
in the throes of labor and you're
Right.
asking me these questions. That does not compute.
Right.
So community doulas being invested into the community, learning the families, getting to know them, and being there throughout. So they walked in with the trust factor, but now
Right.
you got that extra layer of you done become family to them and
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
trust you even more, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, I think is what, in my opinion, has increased those numbers from 51 to 75
That's
in a
huge.
less than a 6 month period,
That's
right? So,
huge.
right. hmm
Well,
That was 21. So remember, we were charged with doing 60 people. Then after that, we got another grant from the Duke Endowment, renewed our grant, and then renewed it for more. So then we can now do
Wow.
a total of 120 doulas and 360 families, right? At that same ratio.
Wow.
To date, we have trained 99 doulas because doula work isn't for everybody. So I get it. We've trained because it's hard work. We've trained 99 doulas, but instead of 360 families, as of yesterday, we are up to 491. That's
wow. That's
as of
Wow.
yesterday.
amazing.
We had two births yesterday. So as of
Wow.
yesterday, we are up to 491 uh, families supported.
Sir. Wow.
Right.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Woo.
Correct.
That
I
is
mean,
awesome. I mean, to start out with like 60 and now we're at like 400, that's amazing. Thank you for joining Two Dope Black Doulas. We hope that you will listen in for future episodes.